Welcome to the sofa. It seemed like only a short while ago that we were talking about NXT as soon TM. We weren't talking about dates or anything like that, but it's out. It came out on Monday. Just about how crazy is it in the office at the moment? Is it ridiculous? Are people scampering to put out fires?
It's much calmer than I thought it would be, I think.
Yeah, I think the kind of betas probably helped with that.
Yeah, the betas got most of the main fires, I think. Things are calming down a bit, but still working diligently to fix all the remaining issues to bring over.
Gotcha. I mean, and still, there is that sense of relief. You guys have been working on it for
absolutely.
a couple of years,
3 years,
something like that. Yeah,
that's astonishing. Okay, so you've probably worked out that this is the future of NXT. RSDevQA. So if you have got any questions that you want us to answer, it's hashtag RSDevQA. We'll endeavour to get to them. So just quickly, intros, because some people might not have met you before.
Mod Lord Git, the lead graphics and engine developer on NXT.
I'm Mod Dolan, I'm Tech QA on NXT.
And I'm Mod Philip, I'm the technical director for RuneScape.
And I'm Mod Osborne, so I've been let back in just to host as a special. I did all the previous NXT streams, so I thought it was only appropriate. So what are we going to be doing? Well, first of all, it's worth noting that we'll be showing off some Port Sarim graphical rework shots. So the guys, we're over here. The guys in the Guardians are putting together the Port Sarim rework. A number of players knew that this was coming. We left hints before, but we've actually got it down for July. Provisionally, and we're going to just show off some shots. That'll come kind of midway through the stream. Right after this, I think that's 5 p.m. UST.
5 p.m. game time.
Game time, 5 p.m. game time. We have a community stream in which we're going through how to kind of set up NXT. So if you're having any troubles, if you want to know how to best optimize it, watch that. That's with Mod Steve W and Mod Tron. So we'll be handing over to them. And of course, later on is Mod Shawnee doing his business. As he does live on air. So NXT is out and be the focus of the stream. One of the things that we're kind of rudely plucked from Reddit, which we love, is a shot of how one guy now checks his farming patches. This is Blitz Duck. So if we can now throw that up on screen. Beautifully highlighted in the red square is his herb patch. We can't see from here, but you can tell that his herbs have grown. So it's not the Wizard's Tower, it's actually the Armadillo Tower. That's lovely. Just shows how some people are using NXT and shows the kind of showcases the draw distance.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be my recommended approach for doing
It's not optimized farming, I'll admit. You could probably got a better way of doing it, but I like it. I just wanted to show you guys that because it really showcases NXT. Some stats. So obviously, you do chip in with these. Say what you think. So it turns out that 92%, sorry, wrong camera again, 92% of people who have downloaded the client have played NXT. So that leaves 8% who have downloaded it but not played it. So what does that mean?
Well,
what do we think?
I think it's a number of things. We know there are some issues where people can't get into the game at the moment. I mean, there's a heat corruption problem that we are aware of. Right. There's some other crashes that we're aware of. I mean, we're working through these, trying to get them resolved. I think 92% of people managing to get in game. That's pretty good for day one, I think.
Yeah, and that's also not counting the people who've downloaded it but saved it for another day. You know, they're going to play it at the weekend or something like that. So that's really good numbers. I mean, you've been on kind of social media, both of you. I've seen you on social media trying to find out what is causing issues with individual players, and there really are edge cases at the moment.
Yes, I think so. I think particularly the heat corruption thing, we're putting a lot of effort trying to track that one down. There's some graphics driver things. I mean, I think in general, a lot of the crashes, if you update your graphics drivers, some of those will go away. Yeah. Which is why we're quite heavily on the on the login screen saying update your graphics drivers, is because if you do, a lot of these crashes disappear. Yeah. So it's really a good idea.
I think kind of broadly, while we are happy that 92% of people are in game playing it regularly, we're still that 8% we still want to improve it. It's not necessary. It's still unacceptable in a way.
I think it's good to put the message out there that it's not just fire and forget. We are still full-time on this thing, trying to make everyone happy so everyone can play it. We're going to do everything we can to please people. So they stay with NXT. That's the main thing. We need everyone to come over.
That's
now.
it, to move over. Yes. Come on, join us. Join us. Over 50% of the player base have transitioned to NXT already. So, I mean, that's across all of our players playing in NXT. That's pretty good. I mean, considering it's a bit of a jump. Lots of people have, fallen in love with playing it, how they play it, don't necessarily want to change. It's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good start.
People tweeting things like, "Oh, I played for 8 hours yesterday on NXT, no crashes," and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's not the experience that everyone's had. I mean, some people have had crashes and things, but we're trying to get to that point where everyone has that experience, and it's going to take us a little while to just.
So it's not quite the point where we burn Java with fire. It's
quite, obviously that's the plan eventually. But, I think there'll be a good ceremonial occasion. But
we'll do it with dignity. It'll be like Darth Vader.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think it's worth reminding everyone though that we can't make massive improvements until Java is gone.
Yeah.
So that's an incentive there for the players to move over.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about that. That's a lot of what the stream is. Future of NXT, what can happen next.
Sure.
I've got a note here. So, Mod Proto will come back with some excellent stats. So we've got a placeholder there to bring in some more stats.
Okay.
He's let us down.
I can give you some extra stats if you like. I mean,
do we have the graph image? Yeah, can we throw that up? So what this kind of shows you what a launch day looks like in terms of our load. So,
well, I think that was outgoing bandwidth from our data centers. I mean, that's just a little example. I mean, we served, since yesterday, since the launch, we served over 100 terabytes of content to players on NXT, which is obviously a bit of a one-off because hopefully everyone will have the cache by the time that we come around to next week. So.
Yeah. It just shows you what happens on launch day and how that kind of tails off. Yeah. All right. Okay. So on to some hot topic stuff. Okay. All right. First of all, Phantom CV, when will the Java client be taken out of service? So kind of following on from what we've just been talking about. What's the number? What's the magic number we have to reach? Is there one?
I don't think we have. We haven't set a number. We haven't got anything like that. What we're doing is we want to, get to a point where we understand why people aren't moving over for various things. I mean, obviously there's some crashes at the moment and a few bugs and things for us to resolve. But once we've got that out of the way, we're going to need to do some back and forth and work out what we need to do to convince people to make the right decision and move over.
I like it. It's kind of a Brexit Bremain thing, those terrible words. We've got to put out our case for why to move over to NXT.
Yeah. Something like that.
Something like that. Just nod and agree. Costa Mesa, why were the Astromancer apprentices removed? So, Mod Dolan?
These were removed.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I thought I just curveball you.
No, but the reason that they're removed is because World Event 4 ended like 4 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's nice that there was a nice Tusker teleport.
It's that feeling of it was first started June last year? It's that feeling of it dominates our game mode. All of those Astromancers are everywhere. They're in a lot of places. We wanted to kind of remove a little bit of the clutter. We didn't want to necessarily have, our Burthorpes rammed with lots of NPCs at one given time.
I can imagine that they were meant to be removed, but they were forgotten about.
Yeah.
And then people like them stayed there, and it's like, okay, guys, we need to finally remove them.
So, it's a case of we're still talking about it, kind of monitoring it a bit.
Yeah.
What we've done is, sorry, I'm answering my own question. I'll chat at you.
Yeah.
So there are still ways of getting there relatively quickly. So there's still the Desert Treasure camp, Lodestone. But a number of people have pointed out you've got, I think it's Wizard Chambers, south of Lumbridge, that you can kind of teleport from. So that dungeoneering jetty. A number of people are setting up kind of grouping system teams and teleporting to the liberation of Mazcab and then going on to Nemi Forest and things like that. So there are ways of doing it. I know that's a little bit kind of fiddly. I know Mod Deg would love to stick down a Mazcab lodestone, maybe do something a bit more related to rep. So we'll see some more stuff in the future. But for now, there are still multiple ways of getting there. And we just wanted to declutter, which will be kind of a focus over the year.
Yeah.
So apologies if you're using them over and over again. We'll try to get you an alternative. Sweet. Okay, and there were some comments. So a lot of social media were talking about item images in NXT. So is that something you wanted to broach?
That's a bit of a sore point. But yeah, we're basically, the reason why the icons look different in NXT is because we generate them with a different lighting pipeline, and we're using the actual models to generate them.
Yeah.
So the icons are not deliberately different. We didn't set out to do that.
I think people don't necessarily realise that.
No,
they might assume they're a sprite that was generated from the model or something like that. It's actually just a...
Yeah, it's a model that's rendered with a new lighting pipeline. So that's not deliberate. We are aware of that. We are trying to make it look more like Java. That's That's all I can say on that, really.
Okay. So
Yeah,
you're
I
working
think
on it.
really
Soon to
we've been putting a lot of effort into other part of the main parts of the game
Yeah.
world and that sort of thing, and they've kind of taken a back seat.
Yeah.
We know that the lighting direction is a bit wrong, the orientation maybe a bit wrong.
I mean, let's go into. I mean,
quite a few.
In terms of kind of feedback and things that you are changing to the existing NXT, so not the kind of future big projects. What are your priorities at the moment?
I think that's really in flux because we're because of the update, yesterday, everyone getting into it for the first time. Really, we're taking the feedback. We're reading what everyone's talking about on social media, and that's setting our priorities at the moment. Once all that's calmed down,
Almost generating a job list.
we'll kind of
Is that where you come in at the moment?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
obviously you're kind of lead tester on it. So you're kind of dealing with that triage list, I guess.
Yeah, there's been around 4,500 bug reports so far.
Are those kind of unique ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we've got to go through all of them and get out all the duplicates and actually put them into jobs and then send them to the team.
My word.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
a
that's a
lot.
lot. No,
Yeah.
that is
So
a start.
I mean, that's a lot fewer
priorities
than
are-
we had in the beta, though.
Yeah.
The betas were, what, tens of thousands?
16,000 the first beta and then 13,000 the second beta, even though the second beta had twice as many players.
So a few thousand in a day, where the beta was a few days, and got
Yeah.
much
And you got your
more
whole
than
team
that.
working on it.
I think we're doing a bit better. So.
All right. Okay. So I've got a number of NXT questions, all come from you guys over the weekend. But also, if you have any questions you want to ask now, it's #RSDevQA. Get them in there, and I'll see them appear on my i thing. I realised that I probably couldn't use the brand. I don't know. Maybe I can. Yeah, it's on the iPad. XAWR. Zor? Will the bright item colours be fixed, or is it intended? So you've covered that. Jad Sandwich. In regards to the future of NXT, since it will pave the way for higher fidelity graphics, will we ever see a graphical update to our player characters? This is possibly slightly outside your remit, isn't it?
A little
But
bit. Don't
And I
really want
think
to commit to an answer
we did the
there.
survey and it came really high.
Your player characters are made up of several different things. They're made up of the objects you're wearing,
Yeah.
and sort of identity kit parts that are like what your head looks like and what your arms look like, which get hidden when you're wearing stuff. So
Sure.
really, it's a question of, do we change how that works to be? I mean, if you want to make a nicer avatar, maybe you have things like how fat and thin you are, tall and short, and facial features and all that sort of stuff. But we've got thousands and thousands of things you can wear in the game, and
Yeah.
going back over those and working out how
It's
we
the
deal with
knock-ons,
that.
isn't it?
And then we've got many different appearances that aren't based upon that. But we've updated how your avatar looks in the past. I mean, if you look at the difference between old school avatars and RS3 avatars, there are changes we have made since then, and we can make changes that are better to these things, but they may well have to be incremental. And
Yeah, absolutely. It won't be this year, I think. I know that we put it on the survey and it came quite high. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if it appeared on the survey again and we start looking at it as bigger project for next year.
Again, I think we have to respond to the players. If there's a massive demand for that, then we'll bump up the priority list.
Yeah, I agree with that. Can we have a borderless window mode? So those of us with 2 monitors don't have the window minimised every time we want to do something on the second screen. That's
so
from
I
Love
saw
No
this question.
We do
and
have
that.
that.
Is the case.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between Java.
Yeah.
In Java, yes, that is broken. That is like that, as in it's not, and you click on it and it's.
So it should be resolved
But in
with
NXT, that is the case.
Yeah, we
So is
do
it a case
have
they
that.
should get in touch
Yeah.
with you, like if they can? Or?
Well, I think that maybe they haven't tried it in NXT, is what I would suggest.
They need to go to the
because-
graphics options, and
Yep.
there's a full screen button.
And that's it?
Yeah, that should
And
work
that is
for them.
windowless border. That's borderless
yeah,
window mode.
Borderless window.
That's
I
great.
mean, I've had it in Windows, full screen on one monitor and done stuff on the other, and it works fine. So
Grand.
if it doesn't for you, then maybe let us know.
Yeah, if it's not one of those things that works in the office but nowhere else.
Maybe.
RS Mainer, will the performance improve as the loads lighten?
So the load, I don't feel that the load on the servers has really caused too much of a problem. I think that they've all been perfectly happy with the load, and obviously that's going to go down over time. The loading, how much your cache you've got downloaded can make a difference to performance. I mean, I don't think that necessarily you need to wait on the login screen for it all to download.
Yeah.
If you do, then
You
you
shouldn't
will
have
end
to.
up with
Yeah,
maybe
I mean,
better,
I've certainly
but
seen a lot of
downloading in the
comments.
background, it may reduce your frame rate whilst it's downloading in the background, but I think maybe you'd rather be playing RuneScape at a lower frame
Yeah.
rate whilst that's happening. Than
We are
not.
going to keep working on optimizations to improve
Yeah.
this stuff.
Are you guys going to be kind of communicating about it? Because I know you did like dev blogs
Yeah,
regularly.
the dev blogs haven't necessarily stopped. There will
Yeah.
be more. essentially, especially with the first kind of major next update post-launch.
Do you know when we're going to get another one? Or?
Well, we haven't got a plan.
It's too early yet.
Yeah,
we're still responding to the players' feedback.
No
essentially.
problem.
We don't know what subject it would be on if we did have one.
Yeah.
You're just waiting.
And
It's
there's
just
a bit-
almost that.
There's a bit of lead time in writing these things as well. I mean, it takes a while.
Yeah,
to
no
write
problem.
them.
Okay, slow cores. Will NXT support 5760 by 1080 resolution? So 5760 by 1080.
So I looked at this. We actually limit it to 2 by 2 for the 1920 by 1080 monitors, just artificially. I mean, we could make it so you could do it wider or bigger. We just decided to put a cap somewhere, and that was 2 of those by 2 of them.
Sure.
I mean, we could reduce that, remove that cap, but I think your interface would be weird. I mean, you'd have so far to move your mouse to
RuneScape
go
IMAX.
between your clicking on stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy.
Okay, so not necessarily an
take you a
urgent.
minute to get from clicking on your inventory to clicking on this window. And
Probably not optimized. What are some of the biggest advantages with developing in C++ over Java?
The main
smash it.
advantage is you've got complete control over performance of the system, memory management as well, and we have better access to the rendering APIs.
yeah.
A lot more access to third-party.
The main problem with
software.
Java in general as a language for, I mean, one of the main problems for this is that rendering APIs, you have to go through the JNI, the native interface, back to
Right.
the C++ or C that's written some translation layer, and that is expensive and will hurt your frame rate no matter what you do. And problematic, I mean, in our Java client, that's much worse because we do that a lot, as in we go back and forth to that layer many times a frame. But even if you only did that once, it's still a lot of overhead.
I think I got that.
But
It just
Easy
opens
to
up
over my head.
access to a lot more optimization
Yeah.
potential, essentially, especially with all the SIMD stuff that we use. And
So talking about kind of more support, there's Zach for 150 asks, any plans for DirectX 12 support?
well, yeah, I actually alluded to this in my last dev block, the future updates one. At this stage, it makes more sense for us to support Vulkan because that's going to be a cross-platform API.
Right.
But we're not ruling it out, nor Metal either. That's the Apple low-level rendering API. But it's all pointing towards Vulkan in terms of the next back-end rendering API that we support.
I think one thing that people tend to think about these new APIs is that they're going to offer some magic, making things faster
Not
or
a magic
better frame
bullet.
rates and things. And I mean, in some respects they will, in that, I mean, they may reduce the CPU
If
side.
you're CPU
So it'd
bound,
be so minor and negligible
yeah,
that you're...
if you're already GPU bound, it makes absolutely no difference.
Right.
And people are finding this with modern games that are kind of releasing updates that support D3, D12. It makes absolutely no difference. It's not some magic bullet that's going to make everything faster. It doesn't make any difference to GPU performance, really. And it's just to help people with worse CPUs. If they're CPU bound, it will improve things. But
and it gives us more open ability to do more things as well as in more complicated stuff.
Another cracking name, Moist Goat RS. I suspect we've already kind of answered this one. Did you consider adding anti-aliasing to inventory models? So this is part of the problem with the...
We did initially do that, but people were complaining about them being too blurry.
Right.
We could revisit that and use a better anti-aliasing technique like MSAA for the inventory icons.
I think this goes for models of players in inventory, like your one model of you standing there and your examine interface as well. I mean, we don't have anti-aliasing on those because we do anti-aliasing on the full screen on the main full screen render.
So we can add that if people.
It feels like you're just pendulum
Actually,
swinging
if you turn on FXAA, you will see that the chat heads are anti-aliased.
Okay. I've completely lost my place. Eridan. Hello, Eridan. Some replayable cutscenes from world events and quests are glitchy due to NXT. Will they be looked at?
Yeah, so I know there's a couple of things that were broken on them. Things like the aspect ratio not being quite right on some things, some slightly zoomed in and out. And I mean, these are all there's just so many cutscenes, so many things that we haven't tried every single one. And
part of me quite enjoys going onto Reddit and just seeing the occasional posts of somebody has got broadsword poking out of their groin and things like this. I think it's the top one.
Yeah,
You know, it's something we're addressing bit by bit, so you can't catch everything.
No.
And
I mean, we've had
join the hunt.
So I mean, this all goes back to the joy of having 15 years of content for RuneScape.
Yeah.
Which is great, but it gives us more problems in terms of trying to support all
it's
of
been
that.
updating every week for the best part of 15 years.
Exactly.
You know, it's trouble. MLQT, will the NXT client fix the shaky models in cutscenes?
So that's due to some of the precision on where the camera is, and some float precision on that. I don't think it'll immediately fix it. It's maybe something that we can look at later in terms of how precise we are on that, or maybe changing our coordinate spaces.
Is this
slightly.
the Z fighting issue?
No, this is the camera position. When you get very close to model, you can see the camera very slightly causes some jittering on.
Not seen that
some models.
personally.
It's quite. You have to be in some of the. It's a few of the cutscenes that do it. But
You'll be on it,
yeah.
I'm sure. We will be going to kind of the Port Sarim graphical rework in a few more questions' time. Okay, so right now, is it possible to set low graphics? Oh, right, I'm going to have to get this right. Camel1210, is it possible to set low graphics to level of low setting in Java client?
So there's a lot of settings, or a few settings at least, that we didn't really put into the NXT client because they didn't really make sense to us from trying to make a new client for RuneScape. They were things that we felt weren't really gameplay related. They were things that people turned off or turned down because they thought it might give them better performance in Java. Mm-hmm. And we decided to leave those things out because they were more complication, more difficulty for us to implement and so on. And we wanted people to have a better graphical experience with the new clients.
I think Mod Dark covered this in a forum thread. People were asking about foliage and things, turning that off, and it really doesn't make any difference to performance. And fog as well, they're asking, can we turn that off? And it just diminishes
your
the
experience.
experience and it doesn't, it's a perceived gain in performance, it doesn't do anything really.
I know there are some cases where people have gameplay reasons they want to do some of these things, and I think we can probably cater to those things with something better than turning off detail options. I mean, there's things like people want to be able to see the grid a bit better, so they don't like the ground blending.
So almost more tools.
So can you turn off the ground blending so we can see the gridded approach bit? But we could make it so you could see the grid in some nicer way. This is
and it also depends on how many people are demanding for this. If it's just one person, then obviously
trying to get a sense of the magnitude of the problem.
Exactly.
I mean, are there any graphical settings really, if you toggled them, that would have any effect on performance?
Well, ideally all of them at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we have the presets. We've got min, low, medium, high, and ultra.
Yeah.
And they do make a big difference to performance. We've also got the auto configuration system in there now.
Sure.
So if people don't want to fiddle around themselves,
you just want to automate it all.
Yeah, and that does seem to be working quite well.
Yeah, I mean that'll give you a good baseline, I think.
Yeah.
I mean you can then tune what it gives you to try and, if you prefer quality over performance or performance over quality, you can turn things up and down a bit.
Yeah. If you're not sure, use the auto config and do what Phil said.
Yeah.
Just tweak a few things.
Yeah.
So we've got a question from the Twitch chat. Metal Fox, do you currently or will you have any plans on modifying the minimap? It feels a little blurry and hard on the eyes.
There are things we can do to improve it. We haven't got anything planned.
We talked about the minimap so much, didn't we?
It's a point of contention, definitely.
I think there's a lot of people who want it to. So we had in the beta, we had a slightly different version of the minimap to what we've got here. We've had it with more textures on, more sort of more of a bird's eye view, and we've turned that down a bit to try and go for the middle ground.
Is it kind of like the tension of the less detail and the better look, the less good looking the map looks? You can identify kind of NPCs, characters, items, shops a lot easier, but really.
And on top of that, there's things like I mean, because we put the zoom in. There's some scaling things where it looks a little bit blurrier in some places because you're zoomed out, perhaps, or you've got some scaling that's going on.
I mean, we could look at increasing the resolution of the textures used, but that does obviously increase video memory somewhat. We can revisit these things if enough people voice their concerns.
Okay, Rubik. Does NXT have anything to do with the mapping system? I remember the grid system was the reason why we couldn't use WSD or WAS to control our character before. Is there any chance of that changing in the future?
So that's really more of a server-side thing on that part of it. In terms of WAS, I mean, we have had a WAS version of RuneScape not
tried
launched.
it. Yeah,
We've tried
exactly.
it out ourselves in the Java client and several times.
And in many ways it was successful.
Yeah,
in other ways
it was just it didn't really feel RuneScape in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think was the main
kind
problem.
of you
It was
felt
more
arbitrarily blocked on things, didn't you?
Yeah, it was kind of just because of the way that the world works. It doesn't feel right in a lot of cases, and I don't think that would change with NXT. We might revisit it at some point, give it another whirl, and see where the problems are again.
It's in that kind of category with like the server tick and a number of things.
Yeah, these are all things that we'd like to revisit and see. But the problem is, or rather not necessarily the problem, but RuneScape it just feels a certain way, and if we change that too much, it wouldn't be RuneScape anymore.
Sure.
I think, and I mean the movement system, the point and click, that is, I think, fairly
we
key
need
to
to
RuneScape.
maintain that identity. Yeah. Okay. And Monkey Man 64, we'll go for O'Dolan. Will you guys be altering the lighting in Dungeoneering in NXT?
We already have.
Yeah.
We could edit it a bit more.
Is there the feeling that it's too dark or too light, or I don't actually know the core of the
guessing
issue?
it's because it's too light.
Yeah.
Too
Is it
dark.
too dark?
Too dark.
But you've already tweaked it over the course of
Yeah,
the
we've
betas.
made it easier for us to make on-the-go tweaks. Like there's four or five types of floors.
Right.
So we've got a config where we can just change those 5 things, and then they'll auto do everything else.
Right.
So it's not a hard thing for us to do, but we need to know exactly what is wanted rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
let's
the
know
whole
in the
thing
chat,
about
what your problems are with Dungeoneering.
I think, well, it's not just Dungeon. I mean, in general, in RuneScape, we've tried to go for a better lighting system. We've tried to go for something that's... We've not tried to copy Java. That's why it doesn't look like Java.
Yeah.
We're trying to make the world look better, the graphics look better. And so we've had an entirely different pipeline for all the graphics, including the lighting.
Yeah.
And that means that some places are slightly darker or slightly lighter, but some of those places, we've decided to make them slightly darker or lighter because we felt that was more atmospheric or whatever. But there is a lot to the world, and we haven't necessarily got that quite how you guys would want it, so it just requires some tweaking.
It's worth adding that we're trying to move away from that super saturated look that you have in Java, because that washes out all the detail. So we're trying to move away from that, and we hope that in time people will like it more.
If you were here for the live stream, if you're watching the live stream last week with the Eastern Lands, that saturated look had a real effect on. We wanted to give that kind of brightness, punchiness to the kind of the blue seas and the bright yellow beaches, and by playing with the lighting, they could do that in NXT. It looks punchy.
The artists now, they have more tools available in terms of adjusting all the tone mapping and adjusting all the color grading. So in areas where perhaps we do want it to be more saturated, they can do that now.
Yeah.
It's much more flexible.
Just more tools.
Yeah.
All right, that's grand. Eridan again, how will quests, both past and future, be affected by NXT with mechanics, graphics and development? Will older quests need to be updated, and are newer release quests, as well as upcoming ones, configured properly for NXT?
So, I mean, quests in general, in terms of the logic of a quest, it's all really server-side stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of what the world looks like, this kind of comes back to what we were talking about a second ago in terms of the mapping and so on. There's more you can do to make it look better.
Yeah.
And that's really the key NXT thing.
I think what's lovely is that we had that opportunity with River of Blood, which is coming out week's time, to we knew NXT was coming out beforehand, so we could capitalise on it. And so that was in there from our kind of core aims. We were like, what can we do with this quest? How can we show these things off? We reworked Patadomus, really kind of brought the player up onto the top of that. It maybe you go to other high places that we've been to before in Mauritania, that's probably ruined everything. And the idea of, seeing an army, seeing the scale of a full-on kind of battle is something we could do in NXT. And there's going to be no end of those in the future. There's almost part of me that wishes we did Beneath Cursed Tides now with the new water effects and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's opportunities.
I think there's more things you can do. I mean, you can take advantage of that. I mean, things like in the Java client, you can't really have that many players around. You can't really have that many NPCs around because it will really hurt the frame rate, and that's not quite so much the case in NXT. Maybe you can have things like God Wars Dungeon 2. Obviously, has a lot more bad guys around.
That's it. The kind of armies fighting over nodes over a huge battlefield.
And I think in Java that's going to be much hurt a lot more than it is in NXT.
We've just had a kind of a sneaky peek at Solar Boss. So we've announced Solar Boss at RuneFest. You know, obviously it's coming out this year, and we had a first look at how they're really taking advantage of NXT. While we've gone for kind of vast open spaces, they're looking at something else. They're trying something else new with NXT. So yeah, it's such an opportunity. Tyler, will you fix Bloom? NXT colours don't pop like they do pop, like they do in Java.
So, I mean, so fix Bloom, I mean...
We can play with thresholds so that more stuff blooms. We can improve the quality of the bloom, potentially.
I want J.J. Abrams lens flare.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, okay, all right.
The thing with bloom is it's dependent on what area you're in.
Yeah.
So if you're in Mauritania, everything's going to be more bloomy. If you're in Lumbridge, less bloomy. It's completely dependent on what area it is, and I don't think it'll be good to make it so everything's the same bloom all around the game, because it just messes with the environment.
The bloom in Java is heavily broken in terms of how it works. It's really...
The blooming is more correct in NXT in that we've got...
designed kind of thing.
Well, we've got a gamma corrected lighting pipeline, so we do everything. All the lighting calculations are in linear space. So the bloom is physically a bit more correct, but yeah, as a result, there's probably less stuff that blooms. But we can adjust that per area. You know, players need to keep giving us feedback.
So it's on a case-by-case basis. Those things that need it, let us know. All right, so we're halfway through the stream, and I think this is a good point to show off some Port Sarim rework shots. So Jagex Joe, or Mod Joe, follow him on Twitter because he does this sort of thing. He suddenly drops the mother load on Twitter and shows off things. So this is the graphically reworked Port Sarim. We are looking to hopefully launch this around the time of Easterlands. So we're looking to launch this in July. And you can see, so we haven't gone to town on layout. So there is a boat that's fundamentally trapped. It can't get out. This has always been the way with Port Sarim. But kind of a boat rework. We're looking at, now see the jail is obviously an abandoned lighthouse. It's how we always intended it.
I like that.
Yeah, it's good. And I don't know if we see the pub at some point. The pub is this kind of, you can see almost like parts of ships made into a single house, you know. And these are things that we've had in our back pocket for a long time, but we just haven't been able to test it.
Getting closer to the concept art.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it should be.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of this is, I mean, look at that beautiful
And now with
water,
NXT, we can get closer to the concept art.
Can't get a better advert than that. So Port Sarim Graphical Rework, hopefully coming in July. Awesome source. Sorry? Closer to player-owned ports. Oh, sorry, in style it's closer to player-owned ports, yeah. So you've got that kind of consistent theme. Sorry, I was trying to translate what John there. I was doing a bad job. So hopefully there's something you like there. That's a nice little kind of addition to the Easterlands, as if there's not enough stuff coming with that. A couple more questions, and then we can move on to like the future of NXT, those bigger projects. What's on your slate? JW0007, will we be seeing stuff like VXGI?
Oh, I would love to do that, but that's very much... That's a long-term project.
Okay.
It's also, at the moment, that if we did that, say, tomorrow, it would only be available to people with certain very, very high-end graphics cards. Yeah, and also we need to try these things out to see if they actually look okay in RuneScape. It might make it look too realistic and then doesn't look like RuneScape anymore. So, as with NXT, every new graphics feature has to be implemented in a very considered way.
I think when you look at a lot of new games, obviously they're creating their content for what they know the rendering pipeline is going to be.
Exactly.
We've already got the content. We need to. We're putting new rendering onto old stuff, and we need to make it look right.
Yeah, I mean, we could have made NXT look more realistic and gritty, but then people would have been up in arms and outside the building with pitchforks.
Areas are just the models.
We need to do it. We need to do this incrementally.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll see that over the course of our lifetime. I mean, obviously, a 15-year-old game, we've just nudged each time. Will we get the option to remove roofs on mouse over so more of us can enjoy the scenery in all its glory?
Yeah.
Sorry, my RuneScape account.
Sorry, I thought you were...
No, I forget to add the name in. I really should do that more.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a reasonable idea. I mean, I saw this comment a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, we've got a lot of stuff to do at the moment to do with more firefighting at the moment, but I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, grand. And thumbsec, will future bosses such as Virago be made even larger? So it's this whole content question. It's a case of, do you take advantage of NXT and completely revise what you already have?
Yeah.
No. That's the short answer. It's it's all well and good going back and revisiting old content and making it better, but when it's working fine, there's no need to go back and just
I might take them case by case, maybe.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine another hard mode for Argo, another hard mode boss where we layer on an extra size. But we're doing solo boss. There's an opportunity to maybe look at size and scope, do something new.
We added support for much bigger NPCs with raids a while ago, just to make it so it was possible to have much bigger ones. So and I think that was taken advantage of a little bit.
Yeah, big groups and stuff. All right, so now we get to shoot the breeze a little bit. Let's talk about your plans for the future. So it's not done. We're obviously aware there are still things to be worked on. There will constantly be worked on over the years. But what comes next?
Well, post fixing all the current issues, I think we need to have a period of reflection where we fix some of our technical debt.
Yeah.
So that will take place, but at the same time, because it's a live game, obviously we're going to be making graphical improvements. So the first of those that I would like to get going is increased texture resolution and normal maps. And that's basically the first step. And with that, improving the lighting as well. Those are the first two major graphical updates.
So would they come as an NXT 2, or are we talking about batches?
It's going to be incremental, like with the new area that we just saw. I think there's some higher resolution textures in there. Yeah. Obviously, producing normal maps for a lot of the content is a huge undertaking. We don't know exactly how we're going to do that yet. We may just try it first in some areas and see how the players respond to it. Yeah. But they won't be like incredibly highly detailed normal maps. They'll just be making things not look as flat as they currently do. If you look in a lot of areas, you'll see like roofs without any normal maps, and they just look so flat. Yeah. I think there's no lighting detail there.
So many players will have, things on the player kit on roofs, as you say, that people are talking about as looking relatively flat.
It does look flat, and the normal maps will add back in the missing geometric detail that's kind of been taken out, especially in areas that have been optimized, where we've removed a lot of excess geometry. Really, they should have been redone with normal maps. They haven't, but we definitely want to do that. So that's the next big step. And also, we're going to continue making lots of optimizations.
Is that your kind of passion project? That's what you want to do next, more than
well, I mean, I'm a graphics developer, so I want to push it as far as I can. But as well, it needs to be incremental. Yeah.
The thing to remember about the increasing the texture resolution. I know that people have said in the past, we've got these textures that are bigger. We've got to actually get them into the game as well. I mean, they're not built into the models yet. They require graphics artist work to put them back in again, and so it's going to be not just an incremental project in terms of incrementally adding features to the engine, but adding it to the content. We're going to have to pick and choose our battles there, and some things will be easier to get it in, maybe some player kit that's popular items that have been added more recently already have high resolution textures that aren't in the game yet. Getting those in, maybe the next thing after we've got the functionality in there. Yeah,
so it will be a larger job than it sounds, but also, I mean, there must be something that you want to work on.
I think it'd be good to get back into the web browser again. That was why we went for what we were trying to achieve with HTML5, what we were trying to achieve with all of this project really was to be back where we were before, which was in the web browser with an applet, and that is not possible anymore because all the web browsers are all deprecating Java and not letting it for valid reasons. I mean, there's lots of security concerns and so on, but we think we can get back there hopefully at some point, and I'd like to get that done.
That'd be great. Is there anything you would particularly like to go to next?
I'd like to be able to get the water environment mapping everywhere in a way. So like the way water works in RuneScape is kind of like got to be on floor -1, so you've got to map it on floor 0. So I'd like to be able to get it so you can get on 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is this part of the reason? So there's a Reddit thread at the moment that says the river lum is like
well, that's partly just because when it was solid colour, it looked right when it was low. When it's actually water and transparent, I mean, having it a bit lower, I mean, it's the same height as it always has been.
I was just wondering if
it's just that because it looks different. I mean, it's not a.
It's one of
that's not
those
really
now
a
I see it in
restriction
a different
of that.
view.
In terms of improving the water, something that we do want to do. At the moment, we can only have reflections on the planar water.
Yeah.
But we'd like to be able to, have improved water on like for example the waterfalls. We'd like to be able to have a water material that we can place down on any arbitrary surface.
Yeah.
And if we add support for things like screen space reflections, we can have nicer reflections on water on arbitrary surfaces.
I think screen space reflections would be cool.
That would be a really nice thing to have.
Mirrors in the game and
exactly.
shield with
we'd actually
reflective
have to put
shields
some
and
mirrors
things.
into the game.
Exactly.
We'd put them
I
everywhere.
think there are some. It's just they have pictures of the character on them. And that sort of thing.
And everything.
I'm going to do it if it's not there already.
Everything now that's environment mapped would actually reflect the real environment around them, and not just some dodgy light probe that the artists have placed. So that's a new thing.
Not that the artists are dodgy.
Well, it's something that's more representative of the local lighting
picture
environment.
photos.
So that will make a big improvement. Screen space reflections.
Gotcha.
Something we definitely want to add. Also, on top of that, I think the next thing for the lighting is point light shadows. Having shadows cast from all the local lights, because at the moment we only cast shadows from the sunlight.
Yeah.
So that will really improve the indoor
dungeon
lighting.
settings and things like that.
Indoor lighting is something that really needs to be improved.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite. I mean, there's a lot of places indoors where it's a bit dark because we've got shadows from the rooms, from the walls and things like that. And I think the best way to deal with that was going to be to have better lighting indoors.
Improved global illumination as well. That will definitely also improve the indoor lighting. Yeah.
Gosh, you've got a shopping list. Yeah. I mean, but in more blue sky, like a couple of years from now, like what is the next big thing? What I know these sound like they're big, but what is the next NXT? What are you doing next, do you think?
Let's finish this one first.
I think
it's too big for now.
Well,
Otherwise, people are just going to be, people want it now.
If you go and see my future improvements dev blog, you'll see there's stuff in there that'll probably take us another 5 years to do if we want to do all of it.
Yeah.
There's also a massive update coming to the animation system as well, and we want to do a lot of rework there.
Right. So the RuneScape first-person shooter is not coming quite yet?
No, I think, well, this is the thing. I mean, things like first-person shooters, I mean, the sort of Twitch play and that sort of thing, it's all designed around not doing that in the first place. So
it's like an anti-FPS.
Yeah.
I like it. We've got a few more questions, a bit more quick fire. Zenil, what are the plans for high-resolution textures for the NXT clients? You've talked about that. Is display scaling for 1440p to 4K high on your priority list?
Yes, I think that in terms of things like scaling of the interface components in particular, obviously we know that's a problem and it's becoming more of a problem as people have more 4K displays, and we need to get on it. Yeah.
Yes.
So that.
Yes is a nice short answer.
That is a huge issue that we need to solve.
Will NXT's release mean that we're more likely to get large landscapes for future areas?
It's highly possible.
Yeah, I know that Mod Connor went over to the Guardians for Eastern Lands and just said, "Can you make them massive?" So like with Mazcab, where you go in there and you feel that sense of space, and it's not like kind of everywhere I go there's a mini map node and there's something to do. That feeling of like I could just take it all in, and it takes a little while to get somewhere. A better sense of exploration and discovery, which kind of fits Eastern Lands. So I think you'll be like exploring more, I guess.
I quite liked the random forest stuff that we had.
Yeah, the Nemi Forest.
Yeah. I think doing more stuff like that would be cool.
I undoubtedly that will happen. How often will we be getting dev blogs with details about NXT updates from Linear M?
I think whenever there's something big, like maybe NXT Update 1, which we don't know when it's going to happen, but next 3 to 4 months or what have you, then definitely I think there'll be a dev blog leading up to that.
That kind of retro of what's happened, what you're planning to do maybe in the next weeks. Okay. And Frank, will the particle system in NXT get improved so it looks as good as in Java?
Yes, so again,
similar to Bloom?
Well, as I said previously, the sooner everyone can move over to NXT, the sooner we can start improving
And this
things.
is one of those cases.
Because really, we're at a point now where we've kind of fixed everything we can programmatically. We need the artists to actually go away and change things, but then it will look different in Java. So Java is holding NXT back visually now.
So this is kind of a heartfelt talk to the players, come on.
Yes.
Let's get to NXT if you can at the moment. Would you be willing to add an extended variety of tree models? So how many varieties have we got at the moment?
I think we have 5 per tree.
Yeah.
Maybe. Is that? I think they may be talking about the height of them.
Right. Okay.
So because if you look at RuneScape now, it's kind of like you see the canopy of the tree and everything's just flat.
Yeah.
So it might be good to maybe change the height of them, maybe a little bit.
I know with mining and smithing, there's so many things that we could do with mining, smithing, rework.
Yeah.
But the idea of that kind of better variety of mining areas, it just looks more like you're going to a rock face and picking out gems rather than a series of, I don't know what they're, tiny hillocks.
Yeah.
In the same space.
I would like to redo some of the trees, but actually for NXT we have just turned on full lighting for the trees. If you go to Elf City,
yeah.
Compared to the last beta, you'll see that the trees, all the lighting is consistent over all the objects now, especially the trees.
Oh,
so
okay.
that looks a lot better. But definitely, I think, better trees could be on the list.
Absolutely. Is there a way to make game tiles visible on NXT? So this is what you were talking about, was an option?
Yeah, I think obviously that's more of a gameplay decision. I think for you to tell me, can we do that?
Damn it! Right,
I
where's
mean,
my pad?
I think things like visual aids, so things like being able to see the grid a bit better, being able to see your player see through walls and translucent walls.
Oh, nice.
All these crazy things that are things we could do.
Yep.
It's a question of whether they fit for RuneScape, whether they're what we want to do in terms of design of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
to be honest, I didn't even know these were possible. So I will take that back with me.
The world is your oyster.
It's Yord. Since the team isn't that big, how big is your team?
Some depends who you ask or what you're asking.
8 and 3.
8, 6.
You mean
8.
core
You
NXT?
count yourself as one.
Core
obviously.
NXT developers? What, 8?
8
8
maybe.
people?
Free QA.
So 8
Free
people put all
QA.
this together. Since the team isn't that big, so yeah, it's not
a big
huge.
team, no.
Will you be mainly focusing on performance improvements or on improving, expanding client features? Well, we kind of covered this roundabout, but
Both really.
Yeah.
It depends on what the priorities are.
yeah,
And
which
which
is
is
what we're
based-
waiting to see from
Exactly.
players.
Obviously, the first thing to do is fixing the issues we know we have
Yeah.
with the current live game.
Shybert, will we be extending the draw distance even further? Can we do that? Is there?
Is that possible? Is there a server limitation for that?
No, there isn't, in that we already don't draw some of the server things for most of the draw distance anyway. It's more that if we make it further, then there's more geometry and things to draw, and it's going to just be more expensive.
You can do it. I mean, if there's high demand for it, then it's definitely worth experimenting to see if that's possible. But it may
We've still got
make
this kind of. Oh, wait, I didn't expect to see all of this anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather just add things that appear in the distance so that it doesn't look like there's nothing, which it currently does. I think.
Boats in the sea and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I know somebody was posting about Ape Atoll.
Yeah.
Like you can see that edge of the game world.
Yeah, we want to.
Or imposter
I
squares,
think
I
that's
guess.
something that we definitely. I'd rather do that than more map squares.
Right.
More map squares they won't fix the edge of the world problem because
Yeah.
there's nothing there.
Yeah.
For example, and it might make the world seem smaller. So what we want to do is make the world seem bigger. Having additions to the Sky Dome so that there's like stuff that's always with you that looks like it just extends. The furthest map square, that might be the
So
best.
that
thing.
illusion of space. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you doing any? So I remember a number of people were asking me about kind of like seeing islands from other islands, so I can see void outposts from Ape Atoll.
Yeah.
Are we attacking any more of those?
I think so. I mean, obviously you probably noticed Karamja's been hidden.
Yes. Yes.
And so have a lot of other random dungeons from each other and so on. But it's a moderate job to do it in that it requires dealing with the sea level and making all the land under the sea match up and getting all the environment lighting right. So it takes some graphics artists time to do it. And it's a question of, are they better off spending their time on something else? It's just... So.
We are currently working on that. Mod Helen and Mod Alan are working on that, I think. I can't remember his mod name.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Remembering mod names is one of the most difficult parts. It's the most difficult part of our job. I swear.
Yeah.
Like you
Someone
being
called Alan.
you being Mod Dolan confuses the hell out of me. Yeah, anyway, it's not important. I've noticed that there's a pop-in of objects and NPCs as you move around. Can the draw distance of NPCs and objects be made higher?
So it's pretty high at the moment. I mean, it's
But
about.
can it go higher, damn it?
Obviously, the higher it goes, it's a square. So the amount of data that gets transmitted by the server about how far, which NPCs are where. Obviously, the further out you go, you've got an extra square of stuff all the way around you to transmit that data of, as to what's there. It gets exponentially more expensive, or quadratically more expensive rather, as you go further out. We gave it a balance. I picked a number where the NPCs were so small that I couldn't be bothered anymore, basically. Making it much bigger is just more load on the servers.
Yeah, because we were talking about like kind of if we saw player characters too far out, what effect would this have on things like PvP? You know, is it a problem?
Yeah, I mean,
and ostensibly we just went no, we just push it as far back as
I mean, we pulled it back in again for the worldy a bit. I feel like that's something that if we've had Java client disappear, maybe we make different decisions on these things and deal with feedback on it.
Having the NPCs fade in rather than pop in would be very nice. That would be less visually jarring.
That would be okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Shoe seems like AMD cards perform worse than the equivalent NVIDIA or NVIDIA cards on NXT. Any plans on optimizing client for AMD users?
It's quite a tricky thing to do. AMD cards generally are worse than NVIDIA cards. You shouldn't expect the same kind of performance from an equivalent card. We're working on it. First we need to fix
squeeze every drop out of it.
Yeah, first we need to fix the compat issues with people having crashes and things, and then we can go back and look at why there's such a disparity in performance, if there really is.
Right. RNG prelations. Sure, I'm saying that wrong. Virago enemy positioning still not perfect like it is on Java. When can we expect this to be fixed? So a number of the kind of PVM community have been kind of saying it's a bit more difficult on certain bosses.
I think we need to lock down exactly what the problems are, because I mean we play Virago and try and get it right, and we think it's fine in some cases, and then we go, oh well, actually is this bit the bit people are talking about, or is this not quite right? It's difficult for us to repro it. So we're trying to get the data we can, work out exactly what's wrong, and see if we can fix it. It's just a process with any bug.
It's kind of like, it's hard to try and find a bug that, it's hard to explain. It's like looking for something you don't know exists.
Right.
It's very difficult.
Okay. So a bit more information is needed, and then maybe we can isolate it a little bit. All right. Aaron RS, is it possible to open multiple clients in NXT? I know you attacked this on Twitter because you can.
Yes, so you can open multiple clients in NXT. There's an issue on startup at the moment that if you open one and it's doing a lot of the cache preloading on the login screen, then another one might not open.
When you're booting it.
So I think maybe if you're in game and one and load login the other one, load the other one up, that might be help. We do so. Obviously, there are Jagged's rules against multi-logging.
Yes.
And this is enforced in the same way in Java as in NXT, except that people have found some workarounds in Java that don't exist in NXT, and I think that might be what people are complaining about. So, yeah, I think there's some thinking to be done on that. So we're going to discuss it and think about what we want to do.
Dishonored Raven, will the Skybox in Mauritania be fixed in time for the quest? Right now the fog effect makes everything in the distance look bad.
Could be a job for the artists.
It's a thing to do with the water, and when the Skybox reflects on the water, it causes weird alpha issues.
I think we fixed that one though, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think that particular one was fixed. I think it's just...
that one we fixed, yeah.
So there'll obviously be a pocket of players who want the best experience from River of Blood. Is it, that they don't necessarily want to wait to play it? Is that something we're looking at? Or?
Yeah.
Is it another one where we want a better sense of what the problem is?
There is a bug in for it, but it needs a little bit more information. You can't just go to the place and go, okay, I know exactly what the problem is. It's kind of a investigation. We need multiple areas of where this is happening, and we can go, okay, that's what the issue is.
Gotcha. Just as a little note, as it is with all live streams, although it looks like we're not looking at the chat, if you have got comments about the things we're saying, particularly like when we're asking for more information on individual bugs, say,
Yeah.
They are being looked at. We've got a team behind the scenes who are picking up individual issues, and then we'll get chatting about it afterwards. So do please let us know. Dishonored Raven. Oh no, that's the one we have. Pen 223. You should cover the future HUD scaling that you guys are going to put in so PVMs can enjoy NXT. So HUD scaling?
So in the same way
Is that
as
a
we said
dream?
earlier, obviously it's high on our priority list because obviously we'll have a lot more 4K monitors than they had in the past. So we are going to need to do that.
Okay.
We haven't, but we're going to need to.
So it's not actually as pie in the sky as the Pen 223
We're
first
going to
thought.
make plans for that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So that is the end of your quickfire. There's no ninja quickfire since we have no ninjas, at least not that I'm aware of, on the sofa.
We're all ninjas.
It's just as you pull off the mask and there's a ninja mask. Thank you very much for kind of chatting about NXT. Hopefully we'll get you on the sofa at some point. It's not the end, as it were.
No, absolutely not.
So this is but the beginning.
It is. It is beginning.